Hello and welcome into the latest edition of the Fore-All Podcast. I'm Jesse Morrison alongside Max Bechtold, and we haven't been with you all in a couple of weeks, but we got a lot to talk about today. And let's just dive right in, Max, to the news that Miami commit Kai Trump is going to make her LPGA debut on at the Annika later this year. And yes, that is the Trump last name. She is the granddaughter of President Donald Trump. What do you make of this, Max?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah, first of all, I think the great thing about golf is, unlike team sports, there's nobody holding you back from playing, right? I mean, if you're good enough to play, you can play. And so the thing about her is there's nobody holding her back from this, right? And so there's no owner who can say she'd be too controversial to bring in. There's no, coach who would worry about how it would fix team chemistry or anything. My thing about this is, and I want to make clear about Kai Trump that I hope and want her to be able to carry out a career independent of her last name and her family. I think she deserves that. She deserves that right to go out and do that. But it's hard to say that while also not acknowledging that the only reason she's playing in this is because of her family name. I mean, she's not even in the top 400 ranked junior girls in the country. I mean, so this is kind of a thing where it's like, yes, I think that she should be able to play in LPGA tournaments if she earns her way into them. It's just she didn't earn her way into this. And I'm not naive that this brings a lot of attention to the LPGA Tour. I was talking to Jesse just before we started recording that. I think this is the first time I've ever gotten an LPGA notification from ESPN. So clearly, it's working. What they want to do here, which is get more eyeballs and more attention and more media coverage. I just wonder at what cost. And in such an important tournament at the end of the season, will this be a distraction to players who are fighting for tour cards or fighting to get into the CME finals? I just think there was better timing to do this, and I think it's a little bit of a head scratcher move to do it at such an important part of the season.
All I'm going to say about it is it will bring eyeballs to the sport. And I definitely don't think it will go over that bad because golf, as we know, is a pretty conservative sport. So that's all I'll
It
say
is.
about it.
And since that's been brought up as well, I do think the other part of this is you do put a lot of your athletes in a potentially difficult situation about having to answer questions about this. I mean, obviously, if they answer questions positively, they're going to get criticism for that. If they answer questions negatively, they're going to get criticism for that. And so I do think you're also putting your athletes who have earned their place there. I do think you're putting them in difficult situations as well. But as you mentioned, it will get eyeballs for let's just be honest here, probably 2 days she plays. And then I do agree that by the time the CME finals start up the next week, it'll be, I think, totally in the past.
Yeah, and man, it would just be hard as a player to answer those questions. And if you know a comment about it, then like people will read into that too. So
Yeah.
yeah, the players are kind of in a tough spot here for sure. All right, let's move on to the fun stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, the international crown wrapped up, and we were kind of wrong. Uh, Team USA played well,
Yeah. I
but
was wrong. I'll say it straight up, flat out, and we'll get to the Australians first here before we dive too much into Team USA. But I was flat out wrong on Team USA.
yeah, they played great. They lost to Australia in the finals. Third place match. The world team beat Japan, so I was a little bit right there, just kind of saying like I did like what the world team had going for them. So that was cool. But yeah, just what do you make of Australia's win?
Yeah, anyone who says chemistry doesn't matter in team golf, I think has been proven wrong for sure this week. Australia was a team that I was very high on. I had them at number 2 in my pre-tournament power rankings, and that's not based off of their world rankings or their results, which they've had good results this year. They've won 2 major titles with Minjee Lee and Grace Kim, but it's because of the chemistry. And you saw that this team plays so hard for each other. They play so hard for the country. I think Kari Webb, who is like very responsible for these players, not only their careers but their relationships with each other. I think she deserves a part of this trophy as well, because I think this is really her vision coming to life. And I think it was super impressive. They're a really, really fun team to root for. I almost kind of wish that they weren't playing the United States in the finals so that I could root a little harder for them, because I think they're really fun to watch. And all 4 players really contributed. And I think when you look at like this is a real like capper on not a career, obviously. She's still got a long way to go, but like Minjee Lee, this is one of the last things for her to like really accomplish that she hasn't already. You look at Grace Kim, this is just a great, finish to her season after winning a major. Hannah Green has not played at her best this season, so this is like a good way to get some momentum and get some good vibes. And Steph Kyriakou, she hasn't won on the LPGA tour yet, so this is kind of the shining moment of her career. So everybody contributed, and it was a big moment for all of them.
All right, let's get to Team USA, though. We thought that they might finish like second to last, maybe last.
I had them at 6th. I had them ahead of China and Sweden, which kind of ended up paying off. They were probably the 2 weakest teams. So, but I had the United States kind of down there with them.
Yeah, just like, what do you think led them to be able to do this? Like, it was it pride for the country, playing together as a team. I mean, they were definitely underdogs in this.
Yeah, I think, well, the underdog thing on that is, I think, one of the main factors. When we think of Team USA, especially in women's golf, like underdog is never the word that would come to mind. I mean, when you think of the United States in general, like, no, it seems kind of obnoxious to say, oh, we're underdogs. But this team kind of felt like it. And obviously,
Nelly Korda wasn't playing.
Yeah, they're only missing one player, which was Nelly Korda. But I do think that gave them a little bit of like a chip on their shoulder of like, let's go prove we can do it without our best player. And I thought Angel Yin stepped into kind of a leadership role really well. It seemed like she was phenomenal. Like, I can't wait to see her on the next Solheim Cup team. Obviously, she's played in a couple already, but I think her upside is huge in that. And I think I underestimated her a little bit. I think that's a lot of what drove my, maybe being low on them. Now, I will acknowledge they had a little bit of the easier draw, I think, for which division they were in. But I do think that this was just a wildly impressive performance by them. Yolimi No looked great. I think just if she wasn't already kind of guaranteed to make the next Solheim Cup team, I think this really stamps her place, because I think her and Angel Yin just proved to be a great 4-ball team. And Lilia Vu stepped up, and she struggled a little bit on the final day. Lilia Vu did, especially with her ball striking, but she played pretty well all week. And so I think those are some of the, and of course, Lauren Coughlin, the one thing I haven't mentioned yet, so steady. Look at her match play record. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so she kind of technically has a loss, but it wasn't really one. And across the Solheim Cup and the International Crown, she's nearly undefeated. And so I once again, like a player, these are 4 players that are going to be on the next Solheim Cup team. And I think Angela Stanford should be very, very excited about what she saw.
Yeah, I think this is a good precursor to the Solheim Cup, and it gives me more confidence in that tournament for Team USA, and they'll have more reinforcements too, and that they'll be better in this. Let's move over to the LET. Yanni Sang got a win. What do you make of that?
I mean, what a story. I mean, the youngest player in golf history, not just the LPGA, golf history, to win 5 majors. And she has basically not been presence on the world scene over the last 10 years. Has kind of come back over the last year or two, played in some majors, not necessarily strong results. And then all of a sudden, in her home country, to come out and get this win, it shot 63 in the first round. She's putting left-handed. Like, that's how bad. She's a righty, but she's putting left-handed. That's how bad her game got, is she made that drastic of a move. And so
I've tried that. and I'm
I mean,
terrible at golf.
yeah, I mean it's so impressive, and I'll be interested to see now if we start seeing some better results from her and start seeing her play a little bit more on the LPGA tour, maybe get into contention a little bit, maybe get in contention in some majors. So I'll be interested to see. But yeah, this was great to see. Just kind of a legend of the game who kind of flamed out really really young. We always talk about how women's golf is a young player's game, and she might be the top example of it. And so to see her fight back over all these years and come back and win was really cool.
I feel like we've seen kind of a bounce back year for a lot
Absolutely.
of the stars of the past.
Minji Lee,
Obviously,
Brooke Henderson. Yeah.
yeah, Brooke Henderson was who I was going to bring up. Uh, she hasn't won, but Aria's had a nice year. Um,
Lexi
and
had some great results.
Yeah, Lexi had some great results. So yeah, I think it's kind of been a bounce back year, which is fun to see because I would personally like more longevity on the tour, just
Yeah.
because when you as a fan or when you're captured by a player or like a player captures your attention, you want to be able to root them on for a good amount of time, 10 plus years, and sometimes we don't see that on the LPGA. So this has been kind of a cool year for that. All right, the Grant Thornton field was announced, and one particular name stands out above the other ones. Jessica Korda is going to make her return to golf here after having a kid and just being away from it for a while. Um, I think people, Nelly Korda has been so good. I think people forget how good Jessica is.
Yeah, I would say there's a strong argument. Obviously, I think Gino is kind of taking over this crown, but there's a strong argument that Jessica Porta is the best player in the world without a major, and that still is true. And obviously, she was a star anyway. She was part of that group of Lexi Thompson and Danielle King, that group of Americans who kind of really crashed the scene, a little over 10 years ago. And she she was a star in her own right, and obviously the family stuff has taken her to the next level. Between Nelly and even her younger brother, and I think that whole family's profile has raised quite a bit over the last 5 years. You see Jessica in a lot of commercials with Nelly. She's one of the bigger stars, bigger names on the tour. And so obviously it is so great to see her back playing in this. I don't want to make assumptions, but I'm thinking this is probably related to somewhat of an LPGA Tour comeback. I think this is a good chance to kind of test it out, see what she's got. She's got a partner along with her, so it's not like all the pressure is on her to perform right away. And so I think this is a good chance for her to kind of dip her toe back into the water, and hopefully we see a little bit of a return. It's been almost 3 years, which is crazy to talk about. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens.
And what are some of the other groupings or pairings here that you're most interested in regarding the Grant Thornton?
Well, Jesse, unfortunately, not many because we have a terrible field of men's players again. Probably worse
Wow.
than before.
Yay.
um,
Yay.
this is a really, really, really weak field. You've got Lydia Cohen, Jason Day, always
I like
interesting.
that.
That's
That was
great.
cool.
That's great. Lilia Vu and Tony Finau, a new pairing that we haven't seen in this before. Finau has previously been paired with Nelly Korda. Nelly Korda no longer sponsored by Grant Thornton, so they're not paired together. She's playing with Denny McCarthy, who honestly might be like the third or fourth biggest name from the men's side of this. But there's
And
some great
I
things.
have maybe heard of him once.
Yeah, but there's some great stuff here. I mean, Lottie Wode's playing for the first time, so that'll be fun. That'll be exciting to
That's
see.
cool.
She's alongside Luke Clanton.
Ooh,
And so he had some success as an amateur, so that's kind of a
great.
fun
Good for him.
connection, I guess. He was the one who won as an amateur, right? I could be wrong on that. My PJ Tour stuff is a little bit off, but I think he was a good player as an amateur. We got Lexi Thompson and Wyndham Clark, which is probably the biggest pairing, I would say, outside of the Grant Thornton sponsors. Got Megan Kang and Angel Yin are both in action. Brooke Henderson and Corey Connors, a Canadian team. Probably the most prominent Canadian from each, maybe you could argue. And then, of course, last year's champions, Patty T and Jake Knapp. I'm really grasping at straws here. Most of these teams are not all that interesting. And if this tournament's going to continue to go, they have to figure something out because
I don't.
this field of men's players is just terrible.
Yeah, there's some bad ones in there for sure. A couple that I'm excited for though. You got Jason Day, you got Tony Finau.
Who are both
Uh,
sponsored by Grant Thornton. So
yeah,
you can assume that that's maybe the only reason they're here. But
it'll be interesting to see if Wyndham Clark, can not get banned from this course. Uh, so whatever happened with that, by the way?
I believe he got a fine and he has to do like community
Yeah,
service
but
of
did he
some
ever
kind.
do the community service? Is my question.
I don't know. Maybe that'll be on the next season of Full Swing.
I'm sure
That'd
there
be
won't
great.
be.
That'd be a great episode.
Sure, they
Like he's
would
out on the
be.
side of the road, like picking up trash or something. Like that'd be great.
Yeah, but I think of my takeaways, it's that just Wyndham Clark's playing, and that's a funny storyline because of what happened earlier this year.
I mean, there's not a lot of interest, but like, and now I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a second here. Like Justin Thomas and Rory McIlroy, like they live in Florida. They're presumably going to be there at that time. I believe they play the next week at the PNC Championship. Like, what are they doing? That like it would be such a huge deal if Justin Thomas or Rory McIlroy were playing in this event. I feel like Justin Thomas would get really into it. You see him play match play, you see him play team golf. Like, I think he'd have a great time out there. And like I just the PGA Tour, I feel like has to do something to get some of their bigger names to go play in this event, or else it will die out sooner or later
Maybe
if
they
they
just
don't.
maybe they just haven't been asked.
Oh yeah, they didn't ask Rory McIlroy if he wanted to play.
Maybe they don't think they can get him. I don't know. It's
Potentially, I
it's
guess
just
that's true.
it's just a theory, and maybe like they have talked to them, and they're like, yeah, sure, we'll do it if Grant Thornton sponsors us. And then Grant Thornton doesn't sponsor it. It's like, we can't afford you guys. You're too expensive for us. So, and then they're like, okay, well then we're not playing in your tournament.
Well, and that's
So
one of the reasons why this is such a lower end field compared to even other years is because Ricky Fowler was previously sponsored by Grant Thornton and no longer is. And so obviously Ricky Fowler, not necessarily the superstar he once was, but he's still a big name. I mean, he'd still be probably the biggest name from the men's field in this event this year, and he's no longer here. So it's just like, and Tom Kim played last year, I believe, alongside Gino, and he's not in the field. So it's like there's just a couple of like these maybe fringe big names that used to play in it that aren't even playing this year.
maybe they're just running out of money or something. Grant Thornton.
Well, they did take their sponsorships down quite a bit. I mean, both Corda sisters are no longer sponsored by them. Daniel Kang is no longer sponsored by them. So potentially, I mean, they got Lydia Ko on board, but that was maybe a decision like, hey, let's, maybe move away from both Corda sisters and kind of replace them with Lydia Ko, I suppose.
Yeah, which it's cheaper to sponsor one player versus two. So I got questions about the financials of Grant Thornton. That's my takeaways are Jessica Corda's playing. That's awesome. I'm excited for that. Uh, number
Just to be
two,
clear, I made a mistake on Luke Landon. He did not win, but he was a phenomenal amateur.
gotcha. Okay. But yeah, Wyndham Clark, that'll be a funny storyline. And then just the Grant Thornton seems to let's see how long they're sponsoring this tournament.
Yeah, it'll be well, but the one thing that's kind of pulled him up is the Grant Thornton, the people sponsored by Grant Thornton. Like they moved to some sponsor that doesn't have a few big name PGA Tour players, then who knows what's going to happen?
Have it be sponsored by FedEx or something, and then that will bring everybody in for sure. Let's move on to this week's tournament, the Maybank Championship. What do you know about this course and just this event in previous years?
I know it's right in the middle of Kuala Lumpur, which I don't actually know how big that city is, but I've heard of it certainly, and so I assume it's a pretty big city. And I know it's right in the middle of it. It's Kuala Lumpur Golf and Country Club, and so yeah, this is a good tournament. It's kind of, I think it's lost a little bit in the middle of all this, Asian swing that's it has a lot of big name winners usually, and obviously Ronan Yin won this last year. So, but golf in Malaysia is kind of growing a lot, and you look at players like Kelly Tan, who's been a solid player on the LPGA Tour, Mirabelle Ting, who just won the Annika Award last year as the best player in college golf. She's going to be in the field this week, and so I think they're really trying to grow the game there a lot, and I think this tournament's a great way to do so.
Yeah, good field too. Really good
Mm-hmm.
field. We get to see Gino again this week. Miyu Yamashita's playing, Rio Takeda, Angel Yin, who we just saw play in the sorry.
International Crown.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's the second time I've done that today. I forgot who was playing in the World Series. Hope I'm okay. Let's
Look,
make
there's
sure.
only been like five full games played in the World Series at this point.
Yeah, I forgot that it was the Blue Jays. All right. Angel Yin, who we just saw play in the International Crown. Both EY sisters are in this one, and plenty other more Lydia Ko's in this field as well. Who are you kind of feeling like's going to win this week?
I like looking at Hannah Green and Angel Yin, two players who maybe haven't had the season that they were hoping for, but played great last week. So should be having a lot of momentum moving forward. Hannah Green in particular, who struggled a little bit at times in the International Crown, but I think played better than her record and really showed that on Sunday. I mean, if she was a couple of made putts early in that round from just wiping the floor with Yuli Mino, who was on fire. And so I'm looking at Hannah Green to kind of get that big bounce back. And Angel Yin was one of my picks for player of the year preseason. And she's had a good year, but this could be really a chance to get herself in that conversation and make it a great year. So those are two players I'm looking for. Of course, Gino. I mean,
yeah, I was about to say.
She's finished top 2 the last 3 tournaments. Like, how can you not pick her to be in contention at least?
Yeah, I was about to say I'm gonna pick Gino to win this one. I think she's gonna keep it rolling, and I think she might get close to, I think she could, get close to what Nelly got last year. But
look at she won the CME last year, so clearly she's comfortable on that course. So
yeah, she's on a tear, and I think I've got to just continue with a player that's on a tear. All right, Max, what do you have on the website currently? That's Fore-All.com, FORE-ALL.com. What is currently up there for people to check out?
So there's plenty of coverage last week from the International Crown if you want to go look into that. Talked a little bit about Australia and how impressive I think this was. And I talked about some of the Solheim Cup implications of this week. So go check that stuff out. Gonna really start, we've got this kind of final finish of the season right here. So it's, the Maybank this week, then next week they're in Japan. So plenty of coverage on that stuff as well. Obviously, these tournaments for a lot of people are really difficult to watch because of the hours. So if you're looking to get your recaps without, going back and watching it on recording, you know where to go.
All right. And that will do it for this edition of the Fore-All Podcast. We'll be back next week talking about the Maybank Championship. So also, if you don't, want to watch it at the weird hours that it's on, we'll have you covered. We'll talk about it next week for sure. On one of the days next week.
Yes.